What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we did have that Grand Theft Auto Trilogy revealed, going to all platforms, which does include a physical copy on the Switch. Unfortunately, we had some bad news hit that release, and you might want to get your SD card ready for this one. We'll go over that here today. Also, we're going to be talking about the Halo Infinite campaign overview trailer that was released, looking much better than the last time we saw the Halo Infinite campaign. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the Nintendo Switch online service with that expansion pack that released, bringing Sega Genesis and Nintendo 64 games to the Switch. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with the Xbox, GeForce Now, and Death Stranding. Now, what we have here is the Edge browser that was made available on the Xbox, which has allowed different streaming platforms to work on the Xbox, like Stadia or Luna, for example, or GeForce Now. Tom Warren was checking this out and even posted up a video on Twitter showing what you could do with it, but he ran into an issue. Death Stranding appears to be blocked specifically for streaming on the Xbox. Now, I did see some people who mentioned, oh, God of War is going to PC and maybe I can use the Edge browser and stream it on the Xbox. I'm sure just for fun, just for the experience of doing that, but it appears that maybe Sony has something set up here. Even Tom Warren was speculating around contractual obligations for Death Stranding not being able to be streamed on an Xbox. And that's the one thing I look at with that all streaming future. We've already had some ownership removed from our games when it comes to a digital library, but now go up to streaming and they're going to tell you which games that you may have already purchased you're allowed to stream to what device. And then you have to come up with other subscription services. Okay, this streaming one lets me stream the new Fallout game. This one lets me do Death Stranding. Okay, this one has got to work. You see, we're going to get into this point where there's going to be all these subscription services set up, just allowing you to stream the games you've already bought. Also, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is out today. Reviews, though, went up yesterday and seemed to surprise a lot of people because the game appears to be good. We can see this over on Metacritic coming in at an 81. That's on 66 critic reviews. We have the split at 54 positive, 12 mixed, and I even took a look around at some of the reviewers that I generally will watch for some bigger releases like ACG or Skillup. They both seem to really enjoy it and even recommended it fully, so I will be checking this game out. I guess I'll pick it up today, try to get some time in with it before the podcast this weekend. As some were saying, it's upwards of 20 hours, and it's not what we had with Marvel's The Avengers, where it was like this live service Destiny-like experience. This one, much more single-player, linear-focused storytelling. So good to see with that, because I was concerned that they would try to throw microtransactions, all this stuff into it, just for the sake of having it be able to profit further. In fact, I saw some reviewers say this is going to make you want other IPs in the Marvel Universe to have games like this, say Iron Man, for example, right? Or Captain America. So I wonder if that's something Square is playing around with here, and this is just like a test to see how it sells. And going forward, of course, what kind of, I guess, tail the sales themselves had through the holidays. But it's good to see that this actually turned out good. I don't really blame people for being looking at this and being unsure of how it was going to turn out after what we saw with Marvel's The Avengers, because it really left that bad of an impression on people that basically any of these games coming out, especially from Square going forward in that Marvel universe, people are going to be kind of hesitant to pick up. Oh, and we also have Mario Party coming out this week, and it looks like Nintendo slipped in a disclaimer after something they experienced back on the Nintendo 64. We can see this over on Twitter, posted up by Anthony, saying they're bringing the original controls for this game back, just with a palm warning. Now, this is tug of war, and the idea here is you would have to spin the N64 analog stick around, and Nintendo assumed that you would just use your thumb. Everyone ended up using their palm, where they hold the controller and they just spin their hand around with the analog stick. And there are, of course, tons of stories about people delivering or developing blisters, and Nintendo would then deliver these like gloves to them, almost like workout gloves, so that they wouldn't get these blisters if they decided to go that route. And I guess they put this disclaimer to avoid irritation to your skin and or damage to the control stick. Do not rotate it with the palm of your hand. Just getting the disclaimer in there so there's no more liability and they don't have to send out different gloves. So remember, the gloves they sent out were like Harbinger, so maybe they could actually come up with some Nintendo-themed gloves this time. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with that Halo Infinite campaign overview trailer that was released yesterday. It's about 6.5 minutes, and I'll admit, I was expecting a bit more, but then I thought about it, I said, you know what, they didn't even tell us that this was happening until like Sunday night. There was like maybe an 8 to 9 hour buildup, something like that. to the reveal of this. So I guess maybe they were like, hey, you know what? We should just put something out on Twitter to let people know this is happening. It wasn't like a week-long buildup, but still, we at least got another look at the campaign, which is something people have been calling for because the last time we looked at it, we got Craig. So people were hopeful that the next time we saw it, there would be some drastic improvements, and I will give them this. It does look a lot better. You can see some of the trailer here, and for the most part, they were just kind of setting up the game itself in the beginning. It does appear that it's starting off with you as Master Chief going down, looking for codename the Weapon, which is an AI, and the idea here is Master Chief is trying to uncover the mystery around Cortana, but they did work to show off kind of the semi-open world style game, what they're going for. They do talk about this in the sense that you're going to be going to different outposts on that Zeta Halo ring, which I was hearing this and I'm thinking, you know, I'm playing Far Cry 6 right now. Is that what they're going for here? Because they show Chief kind of rolling through an outpost with different enemies, brutes, jackals, all of that. And he's just like, yeah, we got to take them all out. So all right, I mean, I guess you're just going to go to different outposts, take out these different enemies, then you get some sort of reward, which then fills up a skill tree. They did show one of those off for equipment, which is great that there will be some sort of progression here to make you stronger or just be able to get around situations easier, like that grappling hook. That looks like it was going to be game-changing for the campaign. It was already a really big deal in the multiplayer, but the way that Chief was just kind of just traversing around with that grappling hook, even doing some midair combat, falling out of the sky and then grappling onto a Banshee and kicking the pilot out and then flying around. That was pretty cool. They did have Chief be actually pretty airborne for a lot of it, blowing up bases with rocket launchers from the sky, and it looks like it's going to be a very vast and large area that you're going to be doing these different battles in. So I'm sure most people are going to be approaching these different outposts and bases in different ways. They also showed off a bunch of vehicles as well as different bosses that I guess you'll be facing along with story elements and cutscenes. So yeah, it looks a lot better than what we saw previously. I'm very excited after seeing this. This is something that Halo Infinite really needed leading up to its December 8th release after it got delayed now a year since that Xbox Series X launch with Master Chief on the box for the system that I picked up. At least it's finally coming out and it is looking better. It certainly appears that they got a lot out of the year delay, making the campaign, at least right now, look much better. My one concern here so far from what I'm seeing and what they've described is kind of that Ubisoft fatigue. The way they're describing going through outposts and all of this, again, it reminds me of Far Cry 6, and that does start to wear on you over time. So I hope they have a few things to change up what you're doing, whether it is different landscapes, environments, enemy types, even just objectives. So we'll see more about this, I'm sure, as we head towards that release date in December. We could even have another flight, maybe one, that lets us kind of run around and part of the campaign. It's hard to say how far they want to push this, but it does look like we're going to be getting the biggest campaign we've ever seen for Halo. Next up, let's talk about that Grand Theft Auto Trilogy remaster that is coming out next month, and then the month after we will have physical copies released. It's an odd situation because you wonder, okay, do I get it day one digitally and then buy it again physically, or do I just wait for that physical copy to come out? Well, when it comes to the Switch version, you might want to just pick up the digital version if this ends up being correct, as it is now being advertised that there will be a download requirement. Now, this was posted up by Target with the official box art, and you see that little blue banner there at the bottom. Yeah, that's frustrating to see around any game, but especially one where it has these 3 games listed as a part of the collection, because you know most likely what would happen here is you would have 2 of the games left off completely and just one would be on that cartridge, so they can of course save money on the cartridge itself. It's something we've been dealing with for the Switch since it came out. Like LA Noire, just as an example, with Rockstar, they did that where they split half the game up and you had to download a good portion of it, and it's the whole thing. And I was hoping that as we went through this generation, we wouldn't have to deal with this as much, because now in my mind, it's like, what's the point in getting it physically? Like, it is very disappointing to see that, because that could have been a really cool thing to have, where you have a cartridge with those 3 Grand Theft Auto games, which Grand Theft Auto was like never on Nintendo's home console at all. Like I said, Chinatown Wars was the best they got on the DS. And then all of a sudden you get a cartridge with 3 of them on it. That would have been really cool. Now, I do want to point out that there are box arts being shared from Europe that don't have any kind of download requirement banner on it. So It's not 100% confirmed necessarily, but it certainly looks like we are trending in that direction. We're going to have to be downloading chunks of this game, even if you buy it physically. I'm hoping that there's at least a cartridge in there and it's not just like, oh, you buy the box and there's a download code and that's it, because then you might as well just buy it digitally and print out the box art. But we'll find out more as we head towards the release, because remember, Monster Hunter Rise, or Stories 2, one of those from Capcom had an issue where it looked like the box art had that banner, but then they had to kind of correct the story and say, no, that's not the case. It's all there on the cartridge. So we'll see if Rockstar has anything for us with Take-Two, again, as we head towards that December release. Next up, we just talked about that Wu-Tang game apparently being in development at Xbox. Now, it sounded just so hard to believe that it had to be real, right? It's completely out of left field. And seems like more and more people are backing that, so yeah, I guess that's a thing. But what about something that sounds even more ridiculous, like a platform fighter, where you can have Fred Flintstone against Johnny Bravo against Batman, and even Shaggy from Scooby-Doo? Apparently that's a thing. Take a look at this over on Twitter. This from Jeff Grubb. This WB platform fighter is real, but it is not a NetherRealm game. And if we take a look at I guess the write-up over on Gaming Leaks and Rumors, this is a burner account, according to them, in like the first paragraph. So a lot of people, of course, are going to take this with a massive grain of salt. But again, it sounds so ridiculous that you go, you know what? This would be the leak that would be true. But like, take a look at the characters. Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, Gandalf, Lord of the Rings, Tom and Jerry, Batman, Fred Flintstone, Mad Max, Harry Potter and Ron are apparently in, but the rights, they say, are weird. And then Johnny Bravo. They say it's a tag team game. Not sure if that means you pick two characters, switch between them, or if each character is actually a pair, or if each character is individual and you only switch when you lose a stock. All I know is there's synergy between certain characters, which implies custom teams. You know what? This game sounds so ridiculous that if it is real, I'm going to have to buy it. I mean, think about that. Gandalf versus Tom and Jerry versus Johnny Bravo versus Shaggy? Like, that just seems like they are just trying to throw all these characters in there that I'm sure WB is able to have the rights, secure them, and all of that. Just so it's this weird mashup to where people look at it and say, well, I have to try it out, because where else am I going to see a game like that? And it appears that a lot of companies are looking towards Smash Brothers' success currently and trying to build out things like with Nickelodeon, for example. So I'm hesitant on this just because of how out there it sounds, but I mean, at times, those end up being the leaks and rumors that end up being absolutely correct. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about that Nintendo Switch Online Service Plus expansion pack that released last night. These, of course, adding Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis games. The eShop seemed to struggle pretty badly when they went live. It kept like 404ing and timing out, hitting retry to finally upgrade and then get these different games. But people were able to eventually get through, and we started seeing some opinions and thoughts post up, as well as some clips. There was also a firmware that was released, which we could see this over on Nintendo's website. 13.1.0 added support for Nintendo Switch Online Plus additional pack, which, by the way, apparently this update adds support for the Nintendo 64 controller completely. Like, that wasn't even supported before this update. Like, this update went live just before the eShop came back so that you could go ahead and download the Nintendo 64 app. They also fixed some problems and improved the stability and convenience of operation. We don't need that anymore. We have a much larger kickstand. We're good on stability now. For those updates. But take a look at this over on Twitter. This was posted up by Fool saying the back long jumps are back. And from what I remember, these were not in the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection. This, of course, is something that is used by speedrunners to get through parts of Mario 64 and skip even completely. So interesting that it made it into this version of Mario 64, but not on the recent release of the 3D All-Stars collection. And I have had a chance to play these very, very briefly before the time of this recording. I am going to spend some more time with it, and I'll probably make a video going over what they've presented here with these 64 games. I've talked about the value of it and how I feel like at launch, it's probably not there for most people, unless you are very interested in Animal Crossing and you realize, I'm going to buy the DLC anyway. I might as well just sign up here and get 64 games and Sega Genesis Genesis games. So I guess look for that video as we go along through this week. I'll even play online with some of the people from the Spawncast and we'll have fun with it. And then I'm sure we'll get some analysis from MVG when it comes to the emulation side of things. And we'll all come together this weekend on the podcast to talk a bit more about it. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a little poll that I posted up yesterday where I asked, if you own a Switch, do you prefer digital or physical games when buying? 27% said digital games, I like having them ready on my SD card. And then 73% said physical games, I like owning a hard copy. I saw some people in the comments say, hey, you got to give us that middle option. Oh, I like both. No, you got to pick one. I'm trying to figure out where we are right now with the split when it comes to digital and physical, because when we see these games like Grand Theft Auto Trilogy come out, but you may as well buy it digitally. Like, is anyone really buying that physical copy if there's one game on the cartridge, or are you buying it at all even if there's like a code in there? It's such a frustrating thing to see for collectors, especially when this is pretty big deal for Nintendo's platform to get these different Grand Theft Auto games. But if the digital physical split is 50-50 or even 60-40 in favor of digital, I mean, why would you make that effort if you're a big publisher like Rockstar and Take-Two, or if you're someone like Nintendo who might work with them to help distribute it, which apparently they are because the barcode on there seems to point to it being Nintendo along with Rockstar. So weird stuff there, but again, I guess we'll find out more as we go along. I was trying to gauge where we are with digital versus physical. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Joestar saying, Rockstar needs to give Bully, The Warriors, Red Dead Revolver, and Manhunt 1 that remastered treatment. I don't know if Manhunt's ever coming back. That was pretty controversial at the time. I wonder how it would do now, especially with like a full remake of it. That would, I'm sure, cause quite a few articles to pop up online. But you know what? I think Bully would be really cool if that got like the Mafia Definitive treatment, where it did get like a full-on remake. Bully has been forgotten about so much by Rockstar, which just, it blows my mind because Bully was awesome on the PS2. This is good on the 360, and you can still play it Xbox One backwards compatible. On PC, it had all kinds of issues, and fans had to fix it with the community. I think at this time, we're ready to see how Bully would do now with, I mean, what's a new audience now that's come in that probably didn't even get a chance to play Bully back on the PS2 when it released. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whether it's the Halo Infinite campaign overview trailer. What'd you think of what they showed there for that campaign? Also, what about the Nintendo Switch Online? Did you try out the Nintendo 64 or Genesis games? Leave your thoughts in the comments. And then this whole thing around Grand Theft Auto Trilogy, unfortunately having that blue banner on the front of the box. Are you waiting for that physical copy still, or are you just going to pick it up digitally? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.